Hey y'all, insight number 5, we're talking Isaiah 11 and probably even 12, which is the last 2 chapters of this week's reading. And this is one of the things that I said is his mainstay. Isaiah prophesies of Christ, he calls Israel to repentance, and he prophesies of the Millennium, or the second coming. So there's a lot of things you can learn in here, and again, a lot of them are symbolic. So if you want tips on how to understand all of this, go look at insight number 1. I give all the tips there. Some really good things to understand it, and you're going to be like, well, that's so simple, it's going to be too easy. No, honestly, just try it. Just try. Give that effort. The effort will pay off. Promise you the effort will pay off. We're looking at 11 though. 11 has a few verses in it. I like in 6 where it starts off talking about, the wolf gets to dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf with the young lion, and the fatling together, and the child shall lead them. And I'm just like, oh, I'd love to have a pet lion or a leopard. I'll have them both. Can I? And the cow and the bear shall feed, the young one shall lie down together, the lion shall eat straw like an ox. It's like, okay, I don't know if lions are literally going to go and eat straw. What it means is they're no longer going to be predatorial. They're going to be gentle. And an ox isn't going to charge you because you're near its babies or anything. It's just going to be this completely peaceful, like that absolute peaceful utopian society that I talked about in the last one that we'd all love to have. This is what it's actually going to be like. And talks about that the child can play around, where poisonous snakes are, and actually it's going to be fine. And they're not going to hurt or destroy each other, and it's just going to be lovely. It says, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which will stand for an ensign. So the root of Jesse is Jesus Christ. That's another way to describe him. And you can see that in footnote 10b, which will direct you to Revelation 5:5 and tell you more about that. See, there's another help. Look at the footnotes. Go look at those scriptures, especially the Joseph Smith translation ones. Big help. And then it talks about how, that in that day, the second time to recover the remnant of the people shall be left. So they'll come from Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Cush, because those are the cities and the places they knew in that time. We would call them something else. So that's how you take that time and make it relevant for our day. In our day, we would say, they're going to gather them all in from China and Egypt and Russia and America and Canada and wherever else. And they're going to gather them all together, even New Zealand, that's what we would say. On verse 12, we'll read that one though, because that one's very good. It talks about the gathering of Israel. So let's have a look at that. It says, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So that is literally it. Everybody, the whole house of Israel is going to be gathered back together in the gathering of Israel. And then it goes on to talk about how things will get destroyed, and different places you can talk about that. Look for Christ in chapter 12 is really good, because in the millennial day, this is when it actually happens. And there's some really good talking there about, I just love verse 5, sing unto the Lord, for he hath done excellent things. This is known in all the earth. And remember who he's done. Remember who he is. Remember that Christ loves you, that he's give you forgiveness, and that he's just, look for Christ. And that's one chapter that you'll see him in every verse, multiple times. So if you're studying and you're like, I don't get it, try 12, especially with your kids. It's one they'll understand. Anyway, so Isaiah prophesies of the last days. And through our study of Isaiah, we'll see many instances where Isaiah speaks of what he knows will come during and before the millennium. Moroni quoted this chapter to Joseph Smith in 1823 about Joseph's role in bringing the Lord's work forth. And, that would have been quite the awakening, wouldn't it? I'm quoting Isaiah to you because you're the person who's going to do this. And you're like, I don't remember volunteering for that. Which is often how a lot of us feel when we get called to do something. Remember, back at Insight 3? Yes, Insight 3, where they asked for a volunteer and he's like, here I am, send me. Well, Joseph Smith did do that. He said, here I am, send me, I'll go do that, I'll be that. But, when we get down here and it happens, you're like, actually, I don't remember. It's like, well, no, you don't remember, but it did happen. So yeah, Moroni quoted this chapter to Joseph Smith in 1823, just about Joseph Smith's role in the restoration of bringing forth the Lord's work. So that's really cool. And what's your role in fulfilling these prophecies? How are you helping to gather Israel? What are you doing? Are you gathering Israel on both sides of the veil? Are you even interested in gathering Israel? Do you even know what gathering Israel means? There's a lot of talk and a lot of explanation on this from President Nelson in the last 3-4 conferences. And just go look at some of his talks. They will talk about gathering of Israel. And doing family history work, you're gathering on the other side. You're doing work here, missionary work. Even just being an example of a good disciple of Jesus Christ is doing the gathering of Israel, because you are shining that light of Christ to the world, so that in all the ickiness, they can see there's light. I know there's something better. Whatever you're doing, you're going to be doing something to gather Israel. It doesn't have to be a huge mission, like literal mission. There's something you can do every day to help gather Israel. You really can. So, Elder Uchtdorf, he said, rejoice in knowing that you are a significant part in the long foretold gathering of Israel, preparing for Christ's coming in power and great glory with all the holy angels. It's like, wow, that's a bit overwhelming. That's a pretty awesome crowd to be counted in. Yeah. So, what am I doing? Well, I do some temple work. Some, not a lot, because the temple's been closed. Hope to do some more. But, most of my family tree, thanks to my wonderful forebears, my forefathers and mothers, has been done. So I'm left looking around, searching around, and seeing what's sort of pick and mix all over the place. But there are still things. And, then there's the, waiting so many years for that space of time so I can then do theirs and, and get there. So there's some of that, not a lot. For some of you, you will be like new members and there'll be a whole lot to do. Or, no one's ever touched your line and you're desperately trying to find out the information. So just keep chipping away at that, keep persevering, keep praying, the promptings will come. I'm also teaching. There's a lot of things you can do, even just serving, being kind to people, and you go out in the world because they know you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And for those watching that aren't, even if you're Christian, if you proclaim yourself to be Christian and you act in a way that Christ would have you act, that's still helping and gathering Israel, because they're going to see that and be like, oh, they're a light, they're good. What have they got in their life that I'm missing? And it's going to bring them back to Christ. It's going to bring them back to Israel. So it's all part of it. Anyway, that's my thoughts this week. Hopefully it helps you study, and we'll continue to look at Isaiah in these ways where it's relevant for our day. We're going to look for Christ. We're going to use the Spirit as we read. We're going to use helps. And what was the other one? I forgot. And ponder the symbols. We're going to look at the symbols and go, what does that mean? Because, it's all good. We'll figure it out. And remember, if you don't know right now, keep reading, because eventually you will, and it will make sense. And not all of it's going to make sense to everybody right now. It's okay. You don't need to go spend money on a whole lot of extra things. If you have resources to go do that, please go do. But you don't have to. The footnotes are good. Internet's good if you use it properly. Don't go down a deep rabbit hole that you don't need to, where you get false information. And, just look at 2nd Nephi as well. It's really good. So, or ask questions. There's so many people online that have so much knowledge. Way more than I do. I have this much knowledge. There's people that have tons of knowledge. Go ask them too. They'll be very helpful. A lot of things you can do. Anyway, there you go. Thank you for joining me this week. Stay safe out there. I'll see you back next week with more wonderful Isaiah, and hopefully help you turn into yay. Love it. Okay. See you there.